Good afternoon. Can you hear me? My microphone's just misbehaving a little bit, so I'm hoping that's going to settle itself down now. It's not quite what I had planned for today. Today has been a little bit of a disorganized mess, as as it often feels on this channel. But I was hoping to be out on the beach today, but unfortunately car troubles meant that I had to take a car to the shop, and thankfully they have been very quick and got it all sorted for very cheap. Some new washers needed to put some bits back in the right place, and we seem to be good to go, which is kind of ideal because guided tours again next week and on this weekend, so I needed to get stuff sorted, and so it's nice to at least have that all done and dusted and fixed. But yeah, I would have much rather been out on the coast today. But instead I appreciate you all being here instead. So yeah. What we're going to do is what we were or have been doing for most of the last week, was looking at this block. This block of Claviceros or Claviceros, depending on your pronunciation preferences. That's got far too many in it for its own good. It's keeping me very, very busy. But basically, I think there's something like 20 odd ammonites we've exposed so far. There's a lot of work to do still to finish this bit in the middle, tidying around all the ammonites, and also exposing all of this end down here. But my plan for today is to try and start working on exposing this end down here. Having a bit of a, as I said, a bit of a not quite as planned day, and so thought we'd do something fairly straightforward, nothing too fancy, nothing too clever, and just start working this down and see at what level we run into the next rounds of ammonites. So we can see them at this level down here. There may be some ammonites up higher, although we know that there's some calcite veins running through this block just to be extra confusing. But I'm expecting there's going to be at least a little bit of matrix removal needed before we run into stuff. But yeah, we'll take it nice and slow. You feel free to ask questions, make comments, tell me I'm doing a terrible job. I don't really mind too much. It's nice that you're all here and keeping me company as I prep, and I hope the music and everything is at the appropriate volume. So yeah. Enough of my yapping, and we'll get you muted, and I'll get prepping. yeah, I am paying attention, and clearly not fully with it because I didn't even put my gloves on today before starting to prep. So, as we talked about last stream, I've got some gloves that, whilst I don't believe they do an awful lot in terms of reducing overall vibration, I believe they do enough that I should have them on. So nothing fancy. They are padded, so there's heavy padding through here, which then helps at least across this section, which is where I'm holding the pen. It's a bit of an interesting block, this. So we've seen most of the ammonites on this side. The section over here at the minute is very, very soft in comparison. I suspect this may have been the end that's been exposed to the elements for the longest, just based on how it's sort of coming apart at the minute. Kind of feels a bit like the rock is just being exposed to the elements and is broken down a little bit. But there's some odd calcite bits, so there's a chunk here of calcite and there's a bit of chunk of calcite here, which looks an awful lot like the ammonite shells, just to make it very tricky. And I say this bit here is actually sitting on top of this vein of calcite, which I think might actually be an ammonite or part of an ammonite. And so I'm busy just trying to see whether this bit of calcite sitting on the top is actually anything more exciting. But yeah, I think this is likely to come away fairly quickly, and then we'll see whether this is an ammonite or if we need to get down to here. And then yeah, see how much we need to take down across the rest of this. I'm expecting to have to at least get to the same level, so you can see roughly when I get it back in shot. So this is the level of the ammonite there. The other ammonite's at my thumb on that side, so I suspect we're going to have to get to like approximately this far down, nearly the whole way along at minimum. But it's possible there is a big hole here, so we'll have to just see where we need to go with it. As Mr. Landfill says, I am reading chat intermittently. It's not my primary focus the whole time I'm prepping, but I am reading it. And so if you do have questions or comments or things that you'd like me to know about or want to know about yourselves, chuck them in there and I will get to them as I am prepping. But yeah, as I say, at the minute it's just slow and steady working down through all of this. Some bits going fairly quickly. The bits that are sort of not super shiny, you can actually see the color difference. This is all sort of a green on the camera, and it's green in person, or a greeny gray. But the stuff just this side of it, this darker gray stuff, is all super soft. So it's just a bit different how fast you go through bits of it. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, we're just slowly ticking along. It's not an exciting day for watching, I appreciate, but if you can see in the box, probably not easily. Hang on, let's switch the camera view, and we should be able to show you. So this box was pretty much clean, so all of this has come off. So we are at least getting places, even if it does not always necessarily feel like it. But that is also the joy of fossil prep. It does take a long time to do it to a good standard, and if you're like me and still learning, it takes even longer to achieve anything close to the standard you see things for sale in the shops. So we are still going. I have dropped most of this level to where I would expect to start seeing ammonites if they're on the same plane as this first half. So this first half here, they come across pretty much there. You can see that if we continue that line, we're more or less at that same level now, but there doesn't seem to be any ammonites in it. So my suspicion, as I said, is that we've got a bit of a drop down here, which not ideal. Especially as the ammonites do then reappear at that sort of height. So it'll be an odd depression here if that is the case, and an awful lot more matrix to come out, which I'm not really enthused about having to do, but we'll have to see. But we'll keep dropping the whole lot at the same pace, and I expect we'll start picking up ammonites on this side relatively soon. But we are still working through this calcite vein up here, which is why you'll probably see me intermittently just tip it sideways, just trying to see what's going on, because sometimes this is really tricky to tell what it is, because the ammonites are calcite, the veins are calcite, and they all look almost identical, even with a bit of magnification. So I'm just taking a little bit of time and just double checking where I'd expect to start running into things as I go. But yeah, it looks like there is a weird, almost a line across here where they just completely and utterly stop, and then it drops quite significantly. Why that would be, I don't know, but possibly because of these veins of calcite that you can see running through here, that there might be something going on that's created this little gap effectively here. But yeah, it's interesting because also on this side we basically see next to no ammonites once we get to this point here. That's the last visible ammonite on this side. So there does seem to be a disappearance of ammonites potentially in a lot of this, that they're only preserved on potentially this side. But we'll have to just keep going. It's easy to speculate. It's not the good way to do it, though. We need to actually get some answers. So we'll keep working. But yeah, it's slow going and not pretty watching. It's just lots of little tips coming off. But I hope the classical music is at least keeping you nice and calm as you can just watch this. Right, sorry, I've just been away with the fairies prepping. I'm just seeing there's been a few people join us, so hey everybody, and is there a reason I use a small tip? So, because I'm busy exploring and uh, the larger the chunk you take off, the larger the thing that you're going to ding if you hit something. So there's the reason I'm using the small tip is I'm taking off a much smaller quantity. It's a lot slower. Kind of it goes both ways. So the less you take off, the slower you go. The slower you go, the more careful you are. The more careful you are, the less likely you are to ding something. Or if you ding something, the smaller the ding will be. So that's basically the simple reason I'm using the little teeny tiny one. We had the chisel tip in earlier, right at the start, and there's a ding there that is caused where the chisel tip went in, and I think that one as well. And so you could probably do a comparison and just see, like, it would take some effort to get that size ding with the point, whereas with the chisel tip, if you're not aware of where the ammonites are and you're just going around like I'm doing and just slowly working down, there is a reasonable odd that you'll hit your ammonites, and yeah, the bigger the tip, as I said, the bigger the ding you're going to leave. The other reason for it is because of the size of the chisel tip. So I'll grab a big one just to show you, but this is the 3mm version. There's a 2mm version as well. You might see the difference in terms of what the contact area is with the rock. So this one, the point, the contact area is just that literal tip on the end, whereas with the chisel tips you've got that whole surface on the edge there, and so you're playing with something like 5-10 times the surface area that you're working with, and so you then have to generally turn up the pressure on the lines to get the same sort of punch that you get with the point, because you're having 5 times the area contacting the rock. And so again, the higher the pressure you need to make the rocks move, the more likely you're going to leave a big ding if you hit something at a higher pressure. So that's the only real reason I'm playing with the little tiny one. Is it's basically just precision. If I knew for sure there was absolutely nothing in all of this and I could just take it away, then yeah, the big tips would be the right way to approach it, and you just take out all of this in one go. Fine, but as demonstrated, like we've got ammonites that, like, let me turn it sideways so you can see the height difference from like down there to the top of these is a centimeter's worth, 2 centimeters worth of sort of depth worth of ammonites that we're playing with. This section here that we're just running into, who knows how deep this is before we hit ammonites. It's kind of like an ammonite hole at the minute, that I'm expecting that there may yet still be sort of almost the same sort of depth again to get down to. But what I have just run into is what I think is a piece of ammonite up here. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Sharper would go deeper, but no. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of everything. You don't want to dive deeply with any of the tips. So again, when you're playing with these, your goal is never to try and go down at a deep angle to try and make them pop. You kind of want to be keeping a shallow bit, again, because you don't know what's behind it. So if I do a really deep dive in here, or even poking just in the side, which you'll sometimes see me do, but usually after I've checked, if you poke in blindly into the side, say here, if it goes in really deep, you may well hit something before the rock pops up. So again, you don't really want to be poking blindly into a deep position. You want to keep it shallow. You want to keep it a small amount removing, in a controlled fashion, and that's a lot of it is just the control. There are highly competent individuals who could very well be doing this prep with a much bigger tool, and they've got more experience, and just be like, oh, yeah, this is how hard I can go, I just know, and they'll just clear it off a lot quicker. But for me, having already dinged a couple of the ammonites with the chisel tip, I just feel more comfortable prepping delicately with the point, the 2mm point. A 3mm point might even be better for doing this, but again, the bigger the tip, the more likely you are to put a big hole in something if you get it wrong. So yeah, hope that explains it. Thanks for the question. So that is tragic, Finn, to hear that you got a 6-inch lighter with no middle. It's not uncommon, full stop, for ammonites to just not have middles. Regular viewers of the channel have seen the number that I have prepped that are just they're just not there. Some places are notorious for it. Ravenscar in particular seems to produce an awful lot of ammonites with no middles, but it's not uncommon for lighters to just have no middles. The ones from the middle lias in particular are notorious for being terribly preserved. I don't know if it's just the shape of the shells, the thickness of the shells, the ribbing, the whatever it is. Yeah, I'm not sure why litos seem to be badly preserved. Although that being said, I think it sounds like you've been particularly unlucky because uh, the upper lias ones tend to be not bad, and saltwick tends to not have terrible preservation for their litos. It will also depend a little bit if they're in the shale. Shale preserved ones tend to have really, really bad preservation in the middles, and so wherever you are in the upper lias, the ammonites in the shale blocks, be it DAX, LEs, whatever, tend to have absolutely no middles. They blow out, and I say blow out, there's a bit of debate whether they implode or explode or just collapse under the weight of the sediment. Um, and the middles seem to be one of the weak points. Just again, presumably because the thickness of the shell when they're small is much smaller, but I don't know. But if it's in a nodule, then it is particularly unfortunate that you've had 3 of them like that. I'm sorry to hear, because that is tragic. But nice to know that there's stuff down at Saltwick. I'd seen a few people had gone that way, but I hadn't seen many finds coming out of Saltwick of late, because I presume it's been hit really darn hard over Easter and in the interim. But no, I can't say why litos in particular for you have been so rubbish. I sent to sit on the other side, and I've been very lucky with my litos that even my middle lias ones have had middles, or at least flat but like distinct middles. So I'm sorry I can't particularly help with that. Unfortunate, but yeah. And then if it's in a nodule, that is just really unfortunate. I mean, if you've seen enough nodules, you'll have seen eudac nodules where, or even your Perinoceras, or similar nodules where they just have that sort of blown out appearance. Yeah, I can't say. It is unfortunate when it happens, and it is tragic that it's a lighter, and it's really unlucky that you've had a few like it. Hopefully you can at least still make it look decent. There's plenty of people who could repair you like put in a new 2.5 sort of inch middle if you so desperately need one. But the other way to look at it, despite it being a tragedy and a pain in the butt that you don't have the middle, is it's just incentive to keep looking for the one that does. And that's how I have to look at an awful lot of mine. So all of the stuff from Blue White at Ravenscar, it haunts me that I can never find one with the middle. And there's been like 10 that I've sent off to prep that have had no middle. So it's just part and parcel of our interests that some of them just aren't preserved, and so gotta just keep looking. Yeah, hey Cheryl. It's a good question as Finn was asking about why the middle's so often gone, and I think it's just because an ammonite doesn't replace its shell. It is the same shell that it started with in life, so it's the middle is where it started when it was a little baby ammonite, and it's growing slowly by adding more shell, and as the shell grows, it's moving into the body chamber, and the body chamber is just slowly rotating and adding to itself. So yeah, it's the oldest shell, is the thinnest, well, it's likely the thinnest shell unless it's able to add more to it just because of its size. So that would be my suspicion, that it's just the weak point in the shell. But yeah, I can't say I'm sure otherwise. There is a principle within sort of engineering called a second moment of area, and it does also say that for a given thickness of material, so say we've got a standard thickness, say my fingers, just for the sake of this, just for this ease here, that if you were to have a cross-sectional area that's like that, so my finger is basically just a solid hole, versus one that's like that with a big gap, the material being put further away from your midpoint of where your forces are or your stresses are, that makes them a lot stronger. And so distributing the same thickness of material in a larger and larger cross-sectional area makes them stronger and stronger. And it's called second moment of area, and it's to do with the distance to the power of 4, if I remember correctly. And it's part of the reason that I-beams are the shape that they are. So if you've ever seen, like on the old construction sites of skyscrapers, or even in your own houses if you've had them done, the beams that are sort of that shape on each side, and again, it's to put a lot of material as far away from your center point of the beam as possible, which increases its bending resistance to, at least in certain directions, to forces in certain directions. And so that would be the other suspicion, is that just by having a broader, wider shell, even if it's not thicker, but by making it a bigger shape, you're increasing your resistance to collapse, and so that may also play an important role in it. I do not know if anyone has measured shell thickness and how that varies through the section of an ammonite, whether the middle is the same thickness as the outer edge, because then you got some slight differences in how you play. But yeah, if you really want to make something strong, you just put as much material as far away from your midpoint as possible. And yeah, that's what the outer shells are like, and I think that's probably why you tend to find an awful lot of pieces of big outer edges, but the middles, I think, are often crushed. But yeah, someone needs to do some stats and some number crunching if they have not already been done. And it does sound like a fun little research question, but not one I will be doing the number crunching on. I have done enough second moment of area stuff with jaws and dinosaurs and crocodiles and stuff. Yeah, so thanks for that. I hope that made sense. It's something that's a lot easier to be able to draw out rather than sat in a prep box trying to explain it with my hands, especially super zoomed in. But I hope that made sense, because yeah, it was what I spent my MSci project doing, working on spinosaurs and crocodiles, and does having a certain shaped skull make it better or worse for feeding on certain objects. And so I was into spinosaurs and were they eating fish, oh god, many moons ago, like 20 years ago, not quite, but almost. And for those interested, the answer is that spinosaurs have a really terribly designed rostrum, and design, again, being used in a loose term here. It's evolved not well. It's not particularly well optimized for dealing with high forces, but if you make something super big, you can then get around it that way. So you don't need to worry about your tube being like this if you've just make it really solid and really big. So a crocodile with a snout this size, but a hollow one, versus a dinosaur with a snout say I'm going to the edge of my view screen, but completely solid. The thing that's completely solid can and may still be as strong, if not stronger, than the little hollow thing, just on the basis of its size. And so that's basically what we argued for Spinosaurs, was that yes, they might not be optimized for feeding on big things, but they are big things, so they might be able to feed on pretty much anything smaller, whether it is terrestrial vertebrate or fish. So yeah, that was my first paper, actually, many moons ago. I say, hopefully the show those videos do help with the Dremel. I cannot guarantee that they're perfect, and there may well be better ways to use the Dremel than I was doing, but yeah, it became quite a useful tool, and you can prep ammonites, as you'll see in those videos. It takes a long time, and a lot of it is kind of similar to the fun I'm having with this block. Is if you try and rush it, particularly with the Dremel, you're just gonna ding everything. So yeah, it's very much a slow and steady. We are descending now into what I'm going to somewhat affectionately and also hatefully call the ammonite hole in this block, where there just seems to be no ammonites. So we're now down below the last ammonites that we know of on this side, and haven't run into any more yet. So I have suspicions that this line of calcite that runs here, and there's another line that runs up here. There may have been a natural break or drop or something has happened here. That basically there's no ammonites on this side of those, and that line there will delimit where we're likely to start running into things. So there might be a fair bit of matrix removal before we get any in the middle. If that's the case, then similarly, when we got rid of the calcite here, we then started running into ammonites again on this side, and we had calcite veins running through here. But it may not be the definitive answer, but I think that's likely what's going on, is we've got some sort of odd line where something has happened, and basically all of this is dropped away, which then explains why there's this sort of deep drop of ammonites here, which we don't see anywhere else. That's my guess. We'll see. It would be nice if they're not all all another inch down or a couple of centimeters deep, because that's a lot of matrix removal, and I don't want to spend a long time penning this, but hey ho. So do I sharpen the tip? So there's been a bit of discussion about this, and I don't have a great answer. I have done mine. So I have a little sharpening thing. Give me 1 second, see if I can find it. Right, can't find it. That's typically how I'm organized in my shed. Everything has been tidied and then has then been untidied by myself. But effectively, get some lapping fluid. You get a lapping block of some description. I had one that was diamond gritted and basically was manually, at least initially. Oh, there it is. Is it? No. No. Do not have it to hand. It's in here somewhere. It's probably fallen down the back of something. But yeah, it's a little tiny block, which in my case had diamond grit on it, because it's basically all you can do with the tips. Sorry, I was just having a look. I can't see it, which is why my voice will be going up and down as I move away from the microphone. But yeah, you can buy on Amazon or similar, or eBay. But yeah, it's a little like rectangle with diamond grit on it, and like 40 and 120 or whatever it happened to be, and you could use that to sharpen the tips. There's a bit of debate between a few of the preparators whether or not you need to. So it does make a huge difference. Here's one of the tips. Let's see if I can get them side by side. So these are both the same tips, but what I did with the one that's very much shorter is whilst I was prepping a very shelly block, I've obviously moved it in such a way that it basically broke the tip off, and so I've had to re-sharpen it, and so that's part of what you have to just be a bit careful. And so yeah, you can sharpen them. I suspect you can also do it if you run the tool at a very low speed and just basically let it go up and down and have your angle correct. You would have to be very careful to not again dull your tip or break your tip or damage your sharpening block so that it's basically useless after one go doing it that way. The debate though between various preparators is whether or not you need to. I was told that some of the preparators don't even sharpen them, but that I don't know if that's just because they're working on a diversity of matrix. If mechanically don't let the metal cool slowly. Here you go. Yeah, so I mean, there are videos of the Yorkshire fossils.net guys just using effectively a grinding tool, and they just grind it on on there. I have no idea if they're just using a diamond gritted thing, kind of like I've got for my Dremel, which again you can buy an awful lot of. So, for example, I bought an awful lot and the different shapes and sizes, and I don't know if you could just basically run one of those on the end of it, if it would work. I have not tried, because at 50 quid a pop for the air scribe ones, it's not worth the cost of finding out that it works or you break your tip at the minute for me. But yeah, basically you'd need to do it and just try and get that tip as sharp as you so choose. This one is going dull, but in theory, as long as you keep having it rotated around, you should kind of self-sharpen. Certain matrices or matrices will work better for that than others, but in theory you should self-sharpen whilst you're doing it by just keeping your angle down as you dull one side. If you then rotate, you'd then be dulling the other side and technically then making the other side sharper again. But sandstones and things like that will sharpen them, whereas hard pyrite ones will dull them. But I would say with the Dremel tip, you can buy them on eBay. You don't need to buy them through Zoic. You can buy similar tips for like 20 quid, 10 quid, whatever it is. They're a lot cheaper. That work the same way. I cannot guarantee the quality in quite the same way that I would have faith in the Zoic ones, but if you need to replace them, it's just easier, I would say, in many respects, just to go onto eBay and buy a cheap replacement for the Dremel. For the fancy air scribe tips, then yeah, you go through the appropriate place, because the Zoic ones are all built for the specific pens, because they have the bit at the bottom, which is then all linked to it. So I don't know if you guys saw, yep, they all have this, and basically this hex, is it a hex? Yeah, this hex shape here locks it in so it doesn't rotate. So particularly for chisel tips it matters. For the points it doesn't make any difference, but for the chisel tips that hex basically stops it rotating within the pen whilst the pen is active. So I can't buy them easily off of anywhere else, but Zoic, yeah, at 50 quid a pop, it's something I have to be a little savvy with and not and not just ruin them. But whether or not you need to sharpen your tip depends on the person you ask. Having a sharp tip does make things a lot easier for delicate work, but equally, as was asked earlier about why I'm using the little point rather than the chisel tip for doing this, the sharper the point, the easier it is to then accidentally push it a bit too deep and ding the thing that you're not trying to touch. So it goes both ways again. So in general, I try not to use my 1.5 mil for doing grunt work on matrix. I mean, I have obviously done it for some of this stuff in the middle here, but you don't do it for your big brutal stuff because you want it as sharp as possible. And so I use it as little as possible, and I have often used the blunted point that I showed you earlier, the blunted version of this one, on matrix, which I know is particularly nasty just because I don't care if I blunt it further. It's not like it's going to make that much difference. But this one, I think, with a blunt tip would be dangerous because I think I'd bump into a lot more. Found it. So yeah, so it's a little block. You can see where I've done sharpening, all the little lines. It needs a good rinse to get all this debris off. But yeah, there's two sides to it. I just use that. Yeah, so I thought it was a lot coarser than it is. It's 300 and 600. The coarser your grit, the more brutal the sharpening it'll do. This is really fine scale sharpening, the sort of stuff you'd use for chisels and the like, trying to get them that lovely super sharp thing that you take off just a tiny amount of what you're working on for like woodwork. But yeah, that's what it is. Bit of lapping fluid and that. So yeah, that's all it is. It's nothing super fancy. I have not sharpened the tool that I'm currently using, and we've been doing a fair old bit of work with it, as you've seen. So I don't think it's a requirement, at least all the time, but it's definitely noticeable when you've got a sharp tip versus a dull tip, like the brand new tip versus a well-used tip. It is noticeable. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if when you get them hot for steel or iron, that makes a big difference. But I think because these are, what the heck are these? Titanium carbide? Yeah, they're a different metal. They're not just pure iron. They're carbide based. I think you might find that heating them might actually make them more brittle. Yeah. Yeah, why can I not remember the metal that they're made out of? Is it titanium carbide? Ali carbide? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I can't remember that one. I should know because what my wedding ring's also made out of. But yeah, it's not directly the same as the iron or steel when it comes to sharpening, so they do take a little bit different. And because they're that other metal, they are incredibly hard, which is why they work on prepping pretty much anything, and they only sharpen when you're using diamond-based sharpening agents. And I'm glad you enjoyed some of the old videos. What's really frustrating. Thank you, tungsten carbide. I'm glad someone's paying attention to this. I should have remembered. Yeah, so because of tungsten carbide, yeah, they may not work the same way with heat. And in general, I would discourage you from trying to heat the tungsten tips. But I just don't know. Yeah, so the tungsten carbide, it's basically only beaten in hardness by diamond, and yeah, that's why only diamond sharpens it, and why you have to then be a little clever with how you try and sharpen the tips. But as demonstrated, you can still dull a tungsten carbide tip on things if you use them enough, or you use them incorrectly because it's strong in certain directions, but it's weak to shear, if I remember correctly. So yeah. And then sorry, I have a very ADHD brain at the minute. It feels like I don't think I have actual ADHD, but I'm feeling a bit sleep deprived. So every time I read someone's new comment, I then forget what I was talking about in the previous one. And Shirley's talking about the ammonites with bites out of them, or whether they are bites or whether they are limpets or whatever. Yeah, there's some really interesting research that's been done by others. I can't say I have done it. That a lot of things had initially been prescribed as bite marks, and there's still a lot of discussion what some of the holes in ammonites are. So you'll see, I'll just have one to hand. So a lot of them have missing chunks out of them at roughly the same position. So this one, for example, has got a huge gap here. The next one that's sat next to it has a ding out of it in the same spot. So there's a lot of discussion about why some ammonites in particular have these holes in very consistent locations. That may be caused by other ammonites nibbling on them. There's definitely some suggestion of that for some of the species from down on the south coast. There is some ammonites from Alberta at the Royal Tyrrell Museum that have like a line of holes, but they've suggested that some of those are from boring. When I say boring, I mean things that dig holes, not things that are not very interesting. From boring bivalves or things like limpets. And then there's obviously the school of thought that if you get a line of them, is it by chance that you've had a line of limpets, or is it actually something like a pliosaur or a mosasaur or something that's had a nibble on them? But the reason I haven't done an awful lot of scientific videos, even though I enjoy doing them, and it's what I did a lot of my work on, is that they don't get the views that a fossil hunt does. And a fossil hunt, I can just do a fossil hunt and film as I go along, and it takes, say, an extra 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever it is on the fossil hunt to film it. And it'll pick up, let's say, 400 views. That's a good view for current videos, but let's say 400 views. I can spend 10 hours, 5 hours, whatever it happens to be, but a lot of hours going through, finding the images, making sure the science is correct, making sure that I've appropriately cited everything, and then it gets 100 views. It gets a little soul destroying trying to do the scientific ones, and that's partly just because of the community I have here. It's not blaming you all. You all have your interests, and there's reasons that you followed me, and it wasn't necessarily for the science. The science is a bonus. But a lot of the other people who are not the super regular viewers, they'll be watching just to go see a fossil hunt or a fully prepped fossil. They won't be there to go spend an hour or 10 minutes listening to why do ammonites have holes in them, or why do we like using digital technology to reconstruct fossils and things like that. And yeah, so I like doing the videos. They don't get enough viewers for the current thing. And at the minute, trying to get myself monetized, I need, sadly, watch hours rather than anything else. And so, funnily enough, these videos here, the streams are doing a world of good. So thank you all for being here and watching, as always. But yeah, the other videos, the hunts and these videos do well, but everything else seems to not do as well. So the grand reveals don't do as well, and they take a surprisingly long time because I'm horrifically incompetent, it turns out, when it comes to trying to say say something to a camera in a semi-scripted and continuous format. But yeah, the science videos, they may come back. And I may continue to do things. So I've already been asked if I want to do an interview about cats, which was one of my research things many years ago. There's someone who's reached out about a cat project or a cat podcast that they're trying to do about the evolution of cats, and they've asked if I want to be involved. So things like that I need to have a think about, because I do enjoy doing them, but it's just, is it the best use of my time? Who knows? Part of it, you gotta have fun with it, don't you? So yeah. So you'll hear it's now chucking it down here. But we'll also have realized that my poor camera decided it didn't want to stay looking down. It wanted to have a look at me. Sorry. It's it's on a flexi tripod, and the flexi tripod has decided it wants to be really flexible and has just dropped the camera. So apologies. And you'll also be hearing far too much of the rain every time I'm talking now. It is England after all. Why would we want to be anything but soggy? In fact, there's even a bit of hail in that. No, I don't like having to have the door open for streaming. Classic. Oh dear. And it is a proper mess when I do streaming in this in this setup. Class. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, it's a juggle. It does give our country character. I have to say, it's one of those funny things. Like, as much as we mock the British climate, it's the fact it's temperate, the fact we get a good amount of rain, the fact we do get good sunshine at least sometimes in the year. It's the reason why we have so much stuff growing. It's why the countryside is always stunningly green and pretty. It's why we don't have any good fossils inland except in quarries, is because all of our countryside is basically green, or in the cases of the Highlands, a mountain, in which case all of the fossils there are well and truly shot. But yeah, it's why we only find our fossils in England on the coastline and in quarries for the most part, is because we have this soggy climate, or this intermittently soggy climate, and why everything's lovely and green and lush this time of year. And it does give us a very pretty country, albeit it doesn't endear itself at all times when the weather's like this. But yeah, as far as what Shirley you were saying, some channels do tick away on next to no subs, some, and then get 1 or 2 viral videos, and what makes them go viral over anything else, it's impossible to know. I mean, I think most people here have watched Man Lambo at some point, the New Zealand fossil hunter, and he was laughing in one of his videos that he did in the museum, in whichever museum it was in New Zealand, that he started off with like 2 or 3 videos that instantly went viral, including like the massive crab prep, and he got millions of views, and then his next one got like 1,000 views. So he had the opposite issue, and it's tough to know what's going to catch people's attention. Unfortunately, a lot of it is increasingly needing some flashy cover picture. It needs, I mean, a lot of people are using AI for those flashy covers and overly dramatic titles, but at the same time it's kind of what's needed to generate the views, and it's tough to blame the creators when that's basically how the algorithm of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram is pushing it to people. Is you need something to catch the initial attention, and then it pushes those videos and the self-perpetuates. Yeah, can't blame them, because that's the only way they can then make the money off of it. And I am trying to hold strong and not do all of that, and I'm trying to avoid the AI and trying to keep it as I have always done. But my channel is not exactly booming. I got a few more subs this week. I think a few of the people who've come out on Fossil Hunts have recommended my channel and stuff. So I'm up to like 1245 or whatever it is, but it's not exactly booming. But the watch hours have gone way up thanks to the streams and all of you guys watching, so I do really appreciate it. And this month alone we've got something like 500 hours, which previous months only tend to flick around somewhere between 180 and 200, so we're like 2.5 times already, and we're only 2/3 of the month done. So big thank you to all of you again for coming along for my streams. Sorry I don't have a fossil hunt, my one fossil hunt on Saturday. I did take the camera out. I didn't get it out. There wasn't that much to show off. We tried out a place called Caton Bay, which has some middle Jurassic as opposed to lower Jurassic, which is what the Lias sections that I tend to hunt are. Found two middle Jurassic ammonites. They were not particularly good. I need to prep them, but they were both like thumbnail size, so not particularly big. And a couple of bits of possible bone, including a bit that might be possibly dino bone, but that it needs a proper check because there's a bit of debate whether it's bone or wood, and that's always a bad sign when you can't tell. It's not distinct, whatever it is. But it was nice to get out and have a bit of time with a mate on the coast and fossil hunt and collect. So yeah. I will. Oh, well, the sun's out. Go figure. I'm going to get back to prepping now that I've just chit-chatted at you whilst it's pissing it down with rain. But yeah. Oh, sure, yeah. It's Cajun Bay is lovely. I would recommend it, even if it's just a place to go chill out. It has a nice big sandy beach. It's got a surf setup and cafe and public loos and all the rest. So yeah, it's a lovely beach. We went north, had a poke around there. There's a few videos by Matt Lawson, who's fossiliferous, if you guys don't know who he is, and he's got some very good geology knowledge. He spells it out really well in his videos about what you're looking at and the age of things, and we basically relied on his information, but wasn't it wasn't perfect for a new person to go collecting based on it, which is probably how you want your videos. You don't want people to just find your video and instantly be able to find absolutely everything in a site, because part of what you're finding is based on your knowledge. So but yeah, we wandered north and had to collect amongst all of the blocks there, and those blocks were hard work. There was a surprisingly large number of blocks with ammonites that we could see, but a lot of them were preserved in a really soft sandstone, and if you tried to open them to get the things out, they just crumbled into 1,000 pieces. So we stopped poking at those, and then had to try and find some hard nodules with ammonites visible. And the problem was the couple of those that we found turned out to be like the hardest things known to man. Like, honestly, you could build sea defenses out of the blocks and they'd still be there in 1,000 years time, I reckon, because they're so hard. So there'll be a revisit at some point with some bigger hammers and some better tools, but they were all loose blocks. We didn't touch any of the bedrock because it's all triple SI protected. So but yeah, I really enjoyed Cajun Bay. Would love to go back and do it again with the little bit of knowledge I now have of the site. I'd hope to do a bit better, and then each time we go back, hopefully find a bit more. And that's kind of the joys of these places, is a lot of it is knowing what to look for, and part of that is just visiting and getting the experience. Yeah, so where are we so far? We're in the ammonite hole, as I'm going to keep calling it, this gap in the middle where there doesn't seem to be very much. We've got this ammonite keel here, what looks to be an ammonite here, although I have dinged it, I do not pretend otherwise, on this bit. Not a particularly big one again. That one seems to be running near vertical, that one's on an angle. So there seems to be some here and then some here, and then yeah, we've got this gap in the middle. It'd be nice just to figure out what level we need to get to find some of these ammonites in the middle. And so I do apologize that today has been very light on finding ammonites, but if you go back to where we started, we are quite a long way down in this block compared to where we were at the start of the day. And I'm hopeful that we can get down and start finding where the top of the rest of these ammonites are, because there should be, at least based on this side, an awful lot more running through it. Yeah, so I appreciate it, Cheryl. It's one of the big ways that anyone ever seems to find any of the stuff I do is word of mouth, and it is always greatly appreciated when people are enjoying what I do enough to pass that on to the next person for them to hopefully enjoy. So thank you very much for passing that on. I hope that we can get you some more ammonites if and when you do come back up as well. We can go explore somewhere else. Maybe somewhere that's not Saltwick Bay, so we can get you some ammonites that might split. Port Mulgrave's been very good to me, and the last couple of guests that I've taken down there. Yeah, I have to say, would you like to see my ammonite is not something that an awful lot of people would ever hear me say. Normally, because I don't carry around a spare one in general public. On the beach, I often do, but in general public, not usual. Sorry, I've also just stopped because I'm just working down this because I knew there was a big line of calcite running across here, and so I was just checking or trying to figure out what's going on. So we've got this little bit of shiny here, which I'm not sure if that was shell or just a layer of calcite that then has like an edge to it, like the side of the calcite, and that's what I was just trying to figure out. But I think what it is I think this might have been part of an ammonite shell here. That we're on the sort of the other side of. So I think there was a line that ran this way, which I've removed, and now we're on the inside, if that makes sense, of the other edge of the ammonite. So we'll remove it and all of this up here and get down, because that's the ammonite layer there, and then we've got another one here. So this is the top ammonite layer that we're just working down and through, at least on this edge. But yeah, as you can see, they're up here. Then there's this one here, and then we've got this big hole that I'm slowly digging my way through to try and find where the next ones are. And if it's as deep as it appears, it is a pain in the butt. And I do wish I could have used a big chisel tip to have removed it. It would have been an awful lot quicker. But this quest to find where they actually are without just being too aggressive with it is an ongoing thing. But yeah, it does look an awful lot like this line here, and then across, and then back up. Might be where they are, for whatever reason. As I said, we've talked about it a few times. What I am seeing though in this section is an awful lot. You might see little like flecks of, okay, so there's little flecks of like dark bits, and then there's occasional light bits, and there are some interesting little bits of shell and whatnot that I'm going through, but again, not ammonites, so not the interest that I'm after, so they're just getting plowed through. But yeah, we'll have to just see how we go. There's an awful long way down to still go in the middle, and it's starting to make you wonder if, like, is it worth just trying to see if it would go that as one piece and then having that as like a second thing. But anyway, I will let you guys keep bantering about your fossils in your bags, and I will get back to prepping. Cheers, Shirley. Have a good day. Right, so where are we up to at the minute? We are having a bit of fun. So the edge of the ammonite there that we knew was there as our sort of our guide for where we were going to run into things is still there, which is good. There's this mess here, which is really ugly under a microscope. And I think this is all calcite vein rather than an ammonite that I've dinged any which way, but I've been spending some time because it runs in just enough directions that make me think it's not an ammonite. Then we've got a fairly nice ammonite keel here, just developing, but whether that continues this way or should have gone that way, I do not yet know. I suspect it should come down through here, but if that's the case, we're missing some of the shell on this side. And then I think there's one here. So this is the side we know where they are. This, yeah, as I said, we've got this stupid shape to it, which tomorrow I might put the chisel tip on just for a little bit and just see if I can bulk remove, I mean, down to sort of level, if it's looking like there's still nothing for the remaining bit of prep today, because yeah, I don't want to spend an extra 2 hours just to dig out a hole on stream tomorrow if if it's not going to have anything there. I was hopeful it would run into a few more bits, and that this line here was just sort of incidental and just not the actual marker, especially because you could see ammonites down here, but I was hopeful that, but hey ho. And likewise, equally, if you look, there's a big gap for where you should expect to see ammonites here, based on the side view, but we've got an ammonite on the top, so it's clearly isn't a perfect where you see one. It's where they all are. Sorry, I appreciate that some of that you may not have seen, but yeah. So there's one there, and we've got one on the surface, but there's a big gap where we don't see any. So yeah, it's why we tend to just take it slow. It's because you never know where they're going to be, and we spent long enough already fighting this one to not ruin it by just being a bit hasty. But yeah, we've got probably 30-ish more minutes of prep today. I'll be back, I suspect, tomorrow, unless I can convince myself to go out for an abridged and slightly rushed hunt. But yeah, I appreciate it. I'd like to get some footage for you guys. All my fossil hunts of late have been tours, and yeah, I've not been filming anything on them. So I did put chisel tip on in the end, just to have a poke. Yeah, there doesn't seem to have been anything up until the calcite line. There was one that runs down here, that ran to this, and there was another one that runs across here. And I've basically gone down to it, and there was nothing in that section. The problem is I don't know how far it goes this way, because I don't have a nice clear line of calcite to use as a tracking mark, so I can't go any further this way. But it was good just to get down to this. We've removed a fair chunk of extra matrix just doing it like that. And not seem to have run into anything, as far as I can tell. There are ammonite keels down here, so there's one visible there. We knew this one was here, but this one's new. That was under a line of calcite. We knew about this one here, and so we're basically down onto that line of them here, and then we'll follow across and keep prepping. But this may all be jobs for tomorrow, just based on the time we're at the minute. So I'm going to just keep tidying away, as we have been doing for the whole thing, slowly but surely through all of this, try and get this a bit tidier again, so that tomorrow we can hopefully get down to ammonites across the whole thing. So this might be where I call it time. I'll show you in a second why. I suspect we're about to have a thunderstorm go through based on how dark it's just gone outside. Oh, and the rain is just starting. So yeah, it might be a good time just to quickly round off. But yeah, I ended up basically bowling that section out, as I suspect this ammonite hole that just doesn't have anything in it. And it does pretty much follow that line of calcite. It went that way across, and there's a bit that seems to have come up here, and there's basically just no ammonites in that section for whatever reason. But yeah, it was almost like that section would have been higher, collapsed in, then had that line of calcite. I don't know, but something like that feels like is what happened. Now we're getting down here, there's obviously bits of ammonite we're starting to see again underneath it. We've started to flick bits off here as we've got to the edge. So yeah, the ammonites have just not been there. Yeah, so compared to where we started the day, when this was higher than everything else, we are now down quite a long way, and yeah, still not very many ammonites in this bit. One couple just up on the top here. So we will get these out hopefully tomorrow, at least exposed. And I'd like to get most of this dropped down to at least the next round of ammonites. So we should hit this bigger ammonite's keel just there. So we're pretty close to that level there. I don't know what will be underneath it, but that might just be where we just draw a line across about as deep as we are in the middle and just come across and make our peace with it. And then try and find the ones down here and see what we can do in this section. Yeah, that's the amount of rain we've got coming in now. And it is a thunderstorm. Yeah, so I'm going to preemptively end the stream so that in case we get a close strike and lose power and all the rest, we don't lose the stream or hopefully short any of the electrics out whilst we're streaming. So I am going to have to do the classic thank you very much for watching, everyone. It has been fun streaming again. It's been nice to have you all around and some very good questions, and been fun to talk science again with everyone. So be safe, look after yourselves, and yeah, I'll be back hopefully, well, maybe tomorrow, depending if I go fossil hunting, but if not, I'll definitely be about on Thursday. But same time, same place, and I'll hopefully see you all then.